saw Houston go with the double big in the postseason with Şengün and Steven Adams, and we may see them go to that again. I mean, when you have
they added Capella,
and they added Capella as well, and they added a 7-foot Kevin Durant as well, who continues to say he's not 7 foot. But so I think to have the ability to do that, one, it starts with obviously here, you know, having IQ, and those guys are smart enough to know how to play off one another, because it's such a dying breed in our game of having two bigs out on the floor, but those guys complement one another. So I think we will see that with certain teams, you know, if they have the right personnel to be able to do that.
I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Right personnel. Like, it's just not having two big guys to take up space. Like, when you think about OKC, you know, Chet can space the floor. He can play and make. He also protects the rim.
Exactly.
Hartenstein's so good at his motor, the floaters, the passing.
Right. You think about like you know, Milwaukee now, where they can play with Giannis and Myles now.
That's right.
You know, they just added Myles Turner. You think about Cleveland. You know, with Allen and Mobley. You know, they have to be able to, you know, complement one another. So
that one's under a little pressure this year, I think.
Oh,
that playoffs. At the end, they're going to be great. Yeah. They're going to be great. And
I think they're under the most pressure of any team coming into the season.
And I think they can find a way. But that is one that I think has been a little bit clunky here when it gets down to the end of games. But another example of, and that's skill, right? You got Jay, who's a great, you know, rim protector, rim roller. And then you got Mobley, who can make plays. Can be a matchup nightmare on both ends of the floor. Houston, you know, I think you think of it as these two bigs, but you got one who's one of the most skilled bigs in the game, maybe ever, in Şengün. And Steven Adams has a skill. He is an offensive rebounding machine, brings physicality.
Yeah, and that was the Houston. They understood that last year their problem was shot making, you know, and shooting the three and whatever the case may be. So, you know, them being able to create extra possessions was something that they knew they benefited from. So, and you look at per 36 when it comes to Steven Adams. I don't know the exact number, but he's going to be up there a lot as far as offensive rebounds, and that works for them. So I think that, you know, they've kind of shored that up a little bit, obviously, with KD's ability to shoot the ball. Dorian Finney-Smith can shoot the ball, you know. So they've added some space as far as the shooting, but that is something, that is a tactic that they know they can go to, you know, if need be.
Sure. The Freddie situation makes it really interesting with them. Just the shooting, you know, they need shooting. They lose a shooter. The leader, the organizer. Opportunity for Reed Shepherd. Also an opportunity, Ime's already mentioned, them to go extremely big. You know, with you know, Thompson is the point. Hand on the ball. You got KD and all that length on the perimeter, and then you got the two bigs inside. Fascinating to see how they make that work. I get it, you know. Now it's a matter of them being practical. How can we create offense for ourselves? I think defensively they'll be able to figure it out with all that length. But it's interesting because, you know, there's two things. Some teams are going big. I think that's trickier, harder said than done, but still a facet. But this depth thing is I don't think is going away. One, like we spoke about in previous episodes, the ability to play blender, more guys that can make a play, that space the floor and can make a play on a closeout, but also just people are starting to pick up full court. We're not going to see as much of it in the regular season, but it's becoming a facet of teams in the regular season,
for sure.
At least in patches. But in the playoffs,
so you need that depth. You have to have that depth to be able to. If there's something that we want to do for 48 minutes, we have to have that depth. So when we bring guys in, boom, we keep it going. You know, Detroit the same way. Detroit to do the same thing. So you have to have those players that it doesn't tail off, you know, when you make a substitution, whatever the case may be, because this is how we want to play. So if this is our team, this is how we want to play. When you guys come into the game, you check into the game, keep the pressure up.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what tweaks we have this year, but there's a lot of teams that have made slight changes. You know, you go down the league, it'd be good to talk about some of these teams. I mean, you know, some teams not by design, you know, when you talk about Tyrese going down, you talk about certain players losing games, you know, but they're going to have to play slightly different. But then there's other teams that have made moves. You know, let's talk about Denver. You know, this is a team that won 7 games.
Yeah, with the champions.
With the champs. Even had AG, I think, with a hammy in the game 7. You know, they add some pieces. They had a shooter in Tim Hardaway. They had, I think, a two-way player in Cam Johnson. They had, you know, one of my favorite players to coach, Bruce Brown. Great competitor, Swiss Army knife, really improved three-point shooter, and just a great competitor. How do you see them as far as revamping the season?
I think they had a hell of a summer. You know, they've added a lot of complimentary players and a lot of guys that's battle tested. I think Bruce Brown was actually on that championship team.
Yeah, he was. He was.
You know, the last time they won it. They also added some more. You know, they lost. You know, obviously Russ and Michael Porter Jr. and DeAndre Jordan, but they added Valančiūnas. You know, who's a big body who's been battle tested as well.
Because they've been reluctant to play a backup center.
They have. They have been reluctant to play a backup center. I don't think they will have that problem now with Valančiūnas.
So is that a double big opportunity? You know, with Jokic's ability to stretch the floor, be the fulcrum, play 5 out.
That is an opportunity.
Play
that
elbow.
is an opportunity. We kind of missed that one.
Because if he's got that ball in that kind of extended elbow area, you know, Valančiūnas, he can find him.
Yep.
And so the ability to roam as the second big is tough. And if you leave his body, he's a great offensive rebounder
for
too.
Sure.
That's a fascinating double big.
Yeah.